iPad.
WWDC is right around the corner, and what else could be the best time to discuss on this topic? My goal in this video is I'll make sure that at the end of this video you'll be knowing which iPad to buy, and you'll also know why 2022 is the best time to discuss on this topic. Just like iPhone sales in India, which are increasing over the past 4 to 5 years, the iPad sales is also drastically increasing over the past 2 years. As of 2022, the iPad sales has grown over 100% in India as per the year-on-year sales report. I bought my very first iPad in 2013, which was 9 years ago, and it is the iPad Air Gen 1. Now in 2022, I'm here with my M1 iPad Pro, which got released exactly a year ago. Why did I wait all these many years to update my very old iPad Air? And more specifically, why did I go for the 2021 M1 iPad Pro in 2022 even after the launch of M1 iPad Air? Wait, don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna recommend this M1 iPad Pro for everyone out there for one main reason, the price. The iPad Air and iPad Pro is having a significant price gap, but the gap in the features are too small. So wait till end of this video to know exactly which iPad is good to buy and what are the differences between each model. It is very important to know about the formats of the recent iPad lineups. So in future, if you see the offers for any of these iPads in Amazon Great Indian Day Sale or Flipkart Big Billion Day Sale, you will know whether it is worth or not. This latest 2021 iPad Pro is nothing but the 2018 iPad Pro on steroids. Apple brought the iPad lineups on track since 2018. This is where it all started. Before 2018, all the iPads, including the Pro models, were having a huge bezel, home button, and only the Lightning connector. But 2018, Apple first revamped the iPad Pro into all new design, and on top of the new design changes, this iPad Pro is the first iPad to support the Type-C port in iPads for the very first time. It also featured the Face ID, 120Hz refresh rate, and a powerful A12X processor. So most of the demanding features that you'll see in the latest 2021's iPad Pro was already there since 2018. So post the launch of 2018 new redesigned iPad Pro, it instantly became the sensation of the tech industry. I was in the urge of getting one for myself. I felt like what else could be the best time to upgrade my old iPad Air. But the price in India made me to hold on to my thought of upgrading, because it was launched at a huge price of 72,000 for the base model of 64 GB. By that time, the affordable iPad Air was still having the old design, and that itself became the main reason for the iPad Pro's record-breaking sale, because it has no real competitor. After that launch, the tech analysts predicted that since Apple has brought the USB-C to the iPad Pro, they might soon bring the Type-C to the iPad Air as well. In the early 2020, the iPad Pro was again upgraded, but this time with few cosmetic upgrades like dual camera and 6GB RAM and 128GB as the base model for the same 72,000, making the Pro a bit more value for money. Till late 2020, it's the iPad Pro that was leading in sales in the iPad lineups despite being the costliest among the 4 iPad models. But not until late 2020. In late 2020, as expected, Apple has launched the redesigned iPad Air, the iPad Air 4. Please make a note of this iPad Air 4. Though this is not the latest iPad Air, we are going to consider this for the comparison section. Now this is where a tough competition came for the iPad Pro. The late 2020 iPad Air was featuring the latest Apple processor, A14, and featured the square design same like the iPad Pro, and finally the Air got the USB-C. Most interestingly, it was 18,000 lesser than the Pro model. So the iPad Air 4 started selling in a rapid manner, and guess what? Thank God I didn't buy this iPad Air by that time. Because soon after this, within few months, like less than 6 months, Apple upgraded their iPad Pro once again. Apple did something which no one was expecting. Apple refreshed the iPad Pro in early 2021, and it was massive. Until then, the iPads was featuring A series processor, which was originally developed for the iPhones. But this time, they literally took the MacBook's M1 processor and inserted inside the iPad Pro. Apple's most powerful laptop chip is now in the iPad Pro. By the way, no one asked for it because the iPhone's A series chip were already powerful enough to handle all the tasks required to be performed by an iPad. But Apple had a vision of taking the iPad to the next level of computing. And that iPad, which got released in 2021, is the M1 iPad Pro, which I'm currently holding in my hand. This is why I said that the 2021 M1 iPad Pro is nothing but the 2018's iPad Pro on steroids. That is, by 2018 itself, we got all the most demanding features like the latest design, Type-C port, 120 Hz refresh rate, everything. But it was sold for 72,000, which was so costly by that time. But slowly after 2 generations of upgrade to that iPad Pro, Apple made the base model to 128GB and they gave the M1 processor to the iPad, but they maintained the price to be at the same level. And after all this, in March 2022, that is just 2 months back, Apple refreshed the iPad Air once again, and this time they gave the M1 chip to the iPad Air also. Now both the iPad Air and iPad Pro is running on the same industry leading M1 processor, the one which is originally developed for the Apple's Mac lineup. This is a brief narration of formation of the recent iPad lineups, and by this itself I hope you would have understood the worth of the iPad Pro and the recent iPad Air. I have spoken a lot about the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, but the lineup is having 2 more models, right? The iPad mini and the regular iPad. So put together we have 4 models now to compare, right? But I'm easily gonna take the mini and the regular iPad out of my comparison. Let me tell you why. The regular iPad is undoubtedly good enough for that price range, but it has 4 major drawbacks. Number 1, the whole design. It still has a huge bezel with the home button. Number 2, non-laminated display. Number 3, the lack of USB-C. Number 4, the regular iPad supports only Gen 1 Apple Pencil. These 4 things makes me not to recommend the regular iPad. Coming to iPad mini, I'm definitely not going to recommend this to anyone unless or until you really can hold only the smaller iPad. Like for example, in the iPad mini advertisement, Apple shows that pilots using it. If you are one such kind of person where you can't really carry a bigger device like the normal iPad, but you still need something bigger than the iPhone, then you can opt for it. There is nothing wrong with the iPad mini, but the price is too costly. You can't even use a split screen and other few multitasking activities effectively on such a small iPad. I would have recommended it if it was being sold for 30,000 or lesser, but unfortunately it is 46,000. So we can directly get into the comparison of 3 iPads: iPad Air 4, iPad Air 5 and iPad Pro. Speaking of the common features, all 3 iPads have same design: laminated liquid retina display, USB-C port, Apple Pencil Gen 2 support, smart keyboard support and same all-day battery. Speaking of the differences, it is very easy to compare the obvious difference between these 3 iPads. iPad Air is having Touch ID, whereas iPad Pro is having Face ID. Air is having 2 speakers, whereas Pro is having quad speaker array. iPad Air has 60Hz display while iPad Pro features ProMotion display, meaning 120Hz refresh rate. iPad Air has only single rear camera while the iPad Pro has dual camera with an addition of LiDAR sensor. Air has only 2 storage options, 64 and 256GB, while Pro has several storage options right from 128GB to 2TB. Air has only one screen size option, which is 10.9 inch, whereas Pro has 2 options, that is 11 inch and 12.9 inch. iPad Air has a USB-C with the 5 gigs per second data transfer speed. Air 5 has 10 gigs per second transfer speed, while iPad Pro has Thunderbolt/USB 4 port, which can transfer data at a speed of 40 gigs per second. iPad Air 4 has A14 chip, while the latest iPad Air 5 and the iPad Pro has M1 chip. Last but not the least, the price. iPad Air 4 is being sold in Amazon and in several retail stores for around 46,000 to 48,000 for the base model of 64GB. iPad Air 5 is 55,000 for the same base model of 64GB, while iPad Pro is 72,000 for the base model of 128GB. Though both the Air models have so many things in common between them, the major drawback in Air 4 is the processor. iPad Air 4 is having the A14 processor. It is fast enough only. In fact, it can almost do everything that the latest M1 iPad Air 5 can do. After all, both the A14 and the M1 are Apple designed silicon chip. Till now, there are no any tasks that can make use of the M1 chip in the iPad Air and the iPad Pro. Even the 5 gigs per second data transfer speed in iPad Air 4 USB-C compared to the 10 gigs per second iPad Air 5 USB-C is not a huge issue. Then what else could be the issue with the 45,000 iPad Air 4 compared to the 55,000 iPad Air 5? It's the vision of the Apple over the iPads. For quite some time now, Apple is focusing to bridge the gap between the iPad and the computers disparately.
This makes iPad not only the most popular tablet, but the most popular computer in the world.
And faster than 92% of portable PC.
Hey, what you doing on your computer?
What's a computer?
They are trying to replace the computers with the iPads for casual users, YouTubers, students, and even for a vast majority of working professionals. Apple didn't give the M1 chip to the iPads just to boost the sales. According to me, it should be one of their master plans to achieve their future goals of taking the iPad to the next level of computing. Hence, at present, even though Apple didn't utilize the M1 chip in the iPad Air 5 and the iPad Pro to its fullest potential, they might come up with several improvements or new feature in the near future. In the long run, they might focus on the iPads with the M series processor. So even though the look and feel of the iPad Air 4 is trendy enough, sooner or later you might feel outdated if they bring any new features or apps which can be supported only by the M1 iPads. So for this reason, I'll not recommend the iPad Air 4. But even after knowing all these facts, if you still feel that for your use case you might not need any features that are going to be specific to the M1 iPads in the future, all you care about is the cheapest option of the iPad, which will be featuring the latest design and pretty good performance for the next 5 to 6 years, you can go for the Air 4. But make sure you're finding it in a pretty good deal of less than 45,000 in any offers. Now coming to the end of this topic, iPad Air 5 and iPad Pro. Both are identical in terms of performance. Any given task for the iPad Pro can also be performed by the iPad Air 5. Yet the Pro is 18,000 costlier than the Air 5. Does the iPad Pro justify this extra money? Let's find out. You would have noticed at least 5 noteworthy add-ons there in the iPad Pro compared to the iPad Air 5 in the comparison section. But most of them are luxury features, I would say. Meaning, without those features, you are not going to miss any major use cases. Those 5 features are: number 1, the speaker. The speakers are good in iPad Pro. It sounds so great where it can easily fill up your room. The iPad Air 5 might not sound as high as Pro, but the quality coming out of the Air 5 speakers are still great. Number 2, the Pro Motion display. If you're someone who is already using 120Hz display device, then this might be a key feature for you. You should go for the iPad Pro because if you had used the 120Hz display, then there is no going back. For most of the people out there who might have not used the 120Hz display so far, then you will not have any visual difference in the iPad Air's 60Hz display while using it. Number 3, Face ID. If you are an iPhone 10 or above user, you know the reliability of the Face ID. It is undoubtedly a great option. But Touch ID in iPad Air is not less of a thing. Touch ID has its own fan base. Next is the dual camera in iPad Pro. The camera in iPad just comes in handy to scan your documents. For this use case, single camera in the iPad Air 5 is more than enough. Number 5, the LiDAR sensor. It is mainly focused for the augmented reality. But iPad Air 5 also can handle all the AR tasks, but LiDAR sensor can be a bit more precise. That's it. It's not going to be a demanding feature in India. All these 5 features are not a showstopper. It is there in the iPad Pro because it's a Pro model. Pro users out there might need this. But there is one more thing. Though Apple may justify the iPad Pro's 18,000 extra cost with the luxury features, the only real value lies in its internal storage. On top of all these 5 luxury features, iPad Pro comes with the 128GB for that price. This might be a deciding factor for many. If you feel you need extra internal storage, then you should be going for the iPad Pro rather than going for the 256GB of iPad Air 5, because the price of the 256GB Air 5 is almost similar to 128GB iPad Pro. But from my experience with the iPad over a decade, 64GB should be fine for most of the users. Interestingly, professional video editing apps like LumaFusion started supporting editing the clips directly from the external hard disk from their latest update. Meaning, if you have several videos in your STD or memory card, now you might not need to transfer it to your iPad locally to edit it. You can connect your external storage to your iPad and directly edit the clips available in them, just like how you will do it in the computers. So speaking of all these, my recommendation for most of the people out there will be iPad Air 5 64GB variant. It is 18,000 lesser than the Pro model. Oh, and one more thing. If you want to buy the biggest display of all the iPads, your only option is the Pro model. Only iPad Pro has a 12.9-inch display size option, and only the 12.9-inch display has a mini LED, but it is way more costlier. Now to answer the question that I asked at the start of this video, why did I wait all these many years to upgrade my iPad, is because I was waiting for a huge upgrade to the Air models rather than the Pro model because of the price. But then why did I go for the 2021 iPad Pro even after the launch of 2022 iPad Air 5? I was waiting to see what the iPad Air 5 could offer. I was hoping for the 120Hz display, but looked like Apple reserved it only for the Pro model as of now. So it made me to go for it. But not everyone needs the Pro Motion display, and on top of this, I found an exciting ICICI Bank offer for my iPad Pro 11-inch in one of the retail stores near my place, where I got the 72,000 iPad Pro for 65,000. Speaking of the offers, I expect some crazy deals for the Air 5 in Amazon's upcoming Independence Day sale. That's it for the video, guys. Thanks for watching till the end. Hope you might have got some valuable information from this video. Please leave your feedback or any queries if you have in the comment section. Please like and share this video to your friends if anyone is looking for which iPad to buy. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram at YourBinaryGeek to get instant tech updates.